somebody flying on the ridge here. We're going to look around and see where they're at. Looks pretty cold here.
We're on Platte Lake in February, and every year we get together for towing, and we're towing behind a snowmobile, and we're getting flights up to 1,000 feet high. There was a light thermal activity this day. Either that, it was really bright. And if you're not really careful and not watching what you're doing, looking down at your harness, things happen. Fortunately, he landed between two. Don't ask me how he did it.
Oh, Judith, Reese, look at that.
Silver Lake over there. All right, very nice. Thank you.
Here we are at Green Point, 375 feet high. The ridge is approximately 4 miles long, and we're looking north towards the LZ near the tanks at the end of the ridge. We've had altitude gains of 3,000 feet here. Endurance record is 8 hours. Green Point is owned by 50 pilots. It's an association, and you'll have to sign in if you do decide to fly there. There's camping on top, water and electricity. We're looking back at the setup area. This was on a Labor Day weekend, and I'm going up the steps to take off from the ramp. Launches here are relatively easy. 1,000 feet per minute up. In the fall, we can really get high here because of the lake thermals that come across the lake. The lake retains its temperature. The air really gets cold. We start getting little bubbles that come up off the lake to get our altitude. Looking back at the ramp, setup area, the camping area also. Looking down the coast to the south. Here we have Betsy Bay in the background with Frankfurt and the outlet. Coming into the LZ. The Mosquito.
How long has the jury been out? It's only been a half hour now. How did it come to 20 days? No, hey, you just calm down. Don't you do anything to
Mosquito has a 15 horsepower engine on it called a Husqvarna. I think that's the right pronunciation. Has 100 pounds of thrust. Weighs approximately 55 pounds with the harness, the tank, and the engine.
Holy shit.
Scott this day at the end of the year got up to 5,000 feet. 2,000 over. Scott at 4,000 feet. He sees that log. All right, he's gonna have a good one. All right, great. "35-mile-an-hour winds." No problem going up. This is a Pro Don. This is the first topless glider, one of many. Got struts coming down from the wings. Some of the locals showing off. Rainstorm coming into shore. Flying with bald eagles. We also have buzzards on the ridge. I had to laugh. Chuck here got in trouble in Utah for saying that he had razor blades on his wings to a paraglider pilot. Oh, Chuck! People coming into the LZ. I think this guy thought the ground was there a little sooner than he thought. On this particular day, the winds were blowing 45 to 50 on top, so Willie decided he was going to go fly a low ridge. You can't get much lower than this. This hill was only about 20 feet high. So after watching the locals to see how they did it, he kept going and he finally got off the ground. Here we thought he was going to eat it.
That was close.
Persistence pays off. It was blowing about 25 to 30 right here. He kept at it for at least an hour and finally got pretty good. This is called the Meadows, and this is on top of Greenpoint. There's a little bit of a rotor on top when you come in for a landing, so you have to keep your speed up. Usually have about 50 chance for a good landing. That was a good landing.
Ooh, look at him go now.
Everybody has their own technique for coming in.
Good for the whack.
Whoever made that last transition, yeah, we hear your squelch and stuff, but you're really hard to understand how we get it set.
Paraglider stuck in the trees, didn't quite make it. And after 25 years of hang gliding, decided to do some paragliding. It's called being biwingle. This guy's really handy to have around. Not your typical landing. Luck has a good part of flying. Bet he couldn't do that twice in a row.
Why did I?
And as time went on, we got a little bit better. We stopped in Leelanau and found this sculpture that somebody had made, and for $10,000 you could own one. In the fall, we get to fly with the geese.
Crazy Mike. Watch that beer there. You're in control. God.
Mike is flying a tandem paraglider here,
Back up.
and it's blowing about 6 to 8 miles an
Rag
hour.
it out, rag it out.
I think Mike weighs
Bye.
about 145 pounds. It's amazing the control that you can have with a paraglider. Looking down at the LZ again. And adjust to a high performance wing. These are the days that you wait for to fly. You have a great sunset. Watch the nose man on this. He gets dragged off the ramp. His shirt got caught on the control bar, dragged him right off the end. Fortunately, nobody was hurt this day. Their pride. There are people that still fly these things. This is called a fledge, and it's controlled by the tips. And a visit by a hang glider pilot. We're looking through a night scope. It has a 2,000 power light intensity. And the Aurora Borealis comes about every 5 or 6 years, and this one was the most spectacular I've ever seen. It kind of looked when it first started like clouds going by really fast, and as the time went on, you could actually see the reflection of the Aurora in the water. It was fantastic. And once in a while, the ultralights get in trouble.
And it was the canopy for what? It came off?
What came off was the clear plastic that velcros onto the wing. I think that must have come off.
Okay.
Our rescue, and here's our friendly pilots.
up? It's starting to go up. Shit.
Right over the hump.
Motorized paragliding. We didn't think this guy was going to get off the ridge at first, but he did okay.
1,200 foot per hour climb rate. We tilted it out towards the lake, so whenever it's light, the weight of the bucket points it up the hill. That's to keep the hang glider pile.
Going up the coast about 1 hour, we're looking down at the LZ. This is the Empire Bluffs, and this is about an hour from Greenpoint, and it's also a 400-foot hill. The ridge is about 1.5 miles, 2 miles long. You have to go to the ranger station to get permits to fly here. It's a hang 3 site and also a para 3 site. The lake was extremely high this year, so there wasn't too much of a landing area to land in, so I had to opt to land at this particular beach. This is not the normal landing zone. We're on an expedition to Empire Bluffs, and if you look behind me, you can see Sleeping Bear Dunes. The winds right now are blowing about north, maybe 10 on top, so we're going to walk in and see what happens here. It's about a mile walk back in, so we'll see. The great thing about paragliding is you can carry it in with ease. This was earlier in the year when there was still snow on the ground, and I'm not quite sure what kind of glider this guy was flying, but he did land in a lake. He was okay. Not quite sure what he was doing. This is back on top, getting ready to take off. The winds were blowing about 6 to 7 right here, so I walked the paraglider up the hill to get into more of the airstream. Right now, it's crossing about 45 degrees. It's pretty decent. I've been up for about 20 minutes right now. We waited about 4 hours to get up here, so it was well worth waiting for. See Sleeping Bear behind me. John McGinnis just took off. This is a typical takeoff from the top. There were about 20 Boy Scouts up here this day, and they were all hoping that he would fly into that tree over there. I think they watched too much television.
Oh, cool shot. Oh, I love it. Oh, wow, cool. Yeah. The fog rolling in.
This was kind of an eerie day with the fog rolling in. Had some great views though. Looking down at the LZ again.
Quite a ways offshore right now. You can look down.
Every once in a while an F-117 will fly through, but it's no big deal.
Great.
This is my wife Sandy coming in for a landing.
Alright, no, these are guys here. Crap. Unbelievable. Got me worried. Well, there's some, yeah, all right.
You can see Empire in the background. We're about probably a mile away from it.
All right.
And it's not too often you get to see a Swift. This is a motorized Swift. Looking at the control system, it's kind of unique.
That's great. Flaps.
And I didn't think this was going to get off the ground with that little motor on there, but it did a great job. Great. And it only took him 10 minutes to take it down and pack it away.
Movie.
More training. We're at Thompsonville Airport, which is about 20 miles inland from Greenpoint. We have an air tug out there that they hooked up and had just recently made this cart. They were also working on the wheels to get those to keep from flapping. Typical tow up to 2,000 to 3,000 feet. And a visit from Hale Bob. This is the National Sleeping Bear Lakeshore. You're also required to get a permit from the ranger station here to fly. This is a hang to and also a para to flying place. Looking down at the ridge, and this is a 450-foot bluff. There's no trees or brush or anything on the hill, which makes it really unique. It also creates its own weather system, and on certain days it'll create a cloud system over the top of the hill because it generates so much heat. The landing zone is down at North Bar Lake, right along Lake Michigan. And this is a designated area. Buckeye powered parachute. This has a Rotex 582 on it. This is a two-seater. Weighs about 325 pounds. and the payload for the two-seater is approximately 500 pounds. Fly it with your feet, no hands. The only thing you have to do with your hands is the throttle and the steering. Top end on it is 27 miles an hour. Great for those no-wind days. You can safely fly this up to about a 10 or 15 mile an hour wind. This is behind my home. These bluffs along here run anywhere from 50 to 100 feet high. We're looking north towards Muskegon. And this is at Muskegon Beach, approximately 3 miles from my home. We do a lot of paragliding here. We have some great beaches in Michigan. And looking south to the north, going south in Holland, Michigan, and this is about a 200-foot bluff. The ridge is approximately 5 miles long. Michigan City, Indiana Dunes. This is actually in Indiana. It's just over the border. One of the locals coming in for a landing. Not good. This faces north-northeast. Can fly it at a northwest. About a 100-foot hill, and we're looking at Chicago. You almost let it get away from you here.
Trouble now. This is real trouble. Well, got it back.
This was my first experience of paragliding here. It was blowing about 20 to 25 on top. I had to really be careful and stay on the ridge. Pyramid Point. way up to Pyramid Point. This is a 400-foot bluff. The winds are blowing northeast today. We walked up here yesterday and it's still spring yet, so we had some real strange air. So we're going to try it again today. Also, the Sleeping Bear National Lake Shore, you'll have to get a permit to fly here, and this is rated as a Hang 3, Para 3 site. Hang gliding, typically you land over the back in a designated landing zone. Looking out front, you can see the Manitou Islands.
1030.
Flying over the back into the LZ. We're looking towards takeoff. It's a little bit turbulent when you come in to land, but it's not anything that you can't handle. Taking off from the lower part of the ridge. Here I was teaching my wife how to take off and land on top in case of an emergency.
At the proper auto rotation angle.
Waiting for the winds to blow.
Yeah, it's like dead down there.
This was in the fall and the winds were fairly thermally coming up the hill, so 1 minute it was blowing, next it was blowing 15. I should have gone down in front and taken off. We got about 1,000 feet over this day. We're looking back at launch right here.
Sure do.
Go, Keith.
This ridge faces northeast to northwest. Looking back at launch. I've always been fascinated by the control with a paraglider. It really gives you the feeling of floating. It's opened up a lot more airtime for me also. Every once in a while, one of these guys will show up, but that's another video.